Good morning, and welcome to the Valencia Lakes Military Veterans Club's Veterans Day ceremony. Normally we have this at the Circle of Honor, but obviously because of the weather and also the COVID-19 threat, we're having it virtual online. Veterans Day is a day to honor all veterans who have served, whether in peacetime or wartime, and who have sacrificed the times of their lives to give service to the country. It's important to distinguish that Veterans Day is different than Memorial Day. Memorial Day recognizes those veterans who actually gave their lives in service to the country. But today is a happy day. It's a day to honor all veterans of whatever service or branch that served in our country's uniform. This is the 102nd anniversary of the origin of Veterans Day. It was originally called Armistice Day, as most of you probably know. On the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month, World War I came to an end. In 1919, President Wilson recognized November 11th as Armistice Day to commemorate the end of World War I. In 1926, Congress officially recognized Veterans Day, and then in 1938, Armistice Day, and made it a federal holiday. After World War II and the Korean War in 1954, President Eisenhower signed an act changing the day to Veterans Day and making it an official federal holiday and a national holiday, which it has been since. The honor and privilege of being a veteran is one that I know that I cherish very much. It was a hallmark of my life. And I think it probably was for most of those who did serve and were viewing today. I want to do an introduction of what we're going to see today. It's a recorded ceremony. And I want to thank our Vice President and President-elect Joe Lumia for all the work he has done in putting this production together. I believe it's about 35 or 40 minutes in total time. Joe was helped by Ron McKenzie, one of our directors, and Jazzy Patel in putting this together, as well as by the board and members. Also want to thank the board of directors and the members of Valencia Lake and our community for the support they have given to our Veterans Club and to veterans throughout the years that we have been here in Valencia Lakes. And with that, I introduce Joe Lumia, United States Air Force veteran, retired, and a great person, and he'll be a great president of the club. Joe?
Thank you, Charlie. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who participated in the production of this program. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your time. What the order of today's celebration will be the invocation given by Bill Schaefer, the club chaplain, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance by Bill, the national anthem. Then we will go into, and the national anthem is sung by the Valencia Lake Singers. We will go then into the roundtable discussion, and you'll hear more Charlie talk a little bit about that once we start up. The panel members, we have a distinguished guest on the panel, a Major General George Norwood, Air Force retiree, 37-year military veteran, and you'll hear more from Nordie throughout the roundtable discussion. Then we'll go to our wreath ceremony. Following the wreath ceremony, or during wreath ceremony, taps will be played by Jerry Bell, and then wrap it up with God Bless America, again sung by the Valencia Lake Singers, and closing remarks by me at the very end. So with that, I am going to start the program, and everybody please enjoy.
Almighty God, we ask that you stand with us this day as we come together to pay tribute to the men and women who have served and who are serving in our armed forces. We are grateful for their dedication and commitment and acknowledge the many selfless acts their service entailed. We also recognize and appreciate the support and sacrifices of their families. We are grateful for their service to our nation, their community, and to society. Almighty God, continue your blessings upon us as we conduct this ceremony upon our community and upon the United States of America. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of the Valencia Lakes Military Veterans Club, I want to welcome everyone to our roundtable discussion. And trying to decide how we would handle Veterans Day in the age of the pandemic, we decided that one of the things we could do is have a roundtable discussion about the meaning of Veterans Day to us today and also in the past. And General Norwood had a very distinguished career. He retired from the Air Force after almost 30 years after being commissioned in 1967 as the honor graduate from Air Force ROTC. He thereafter soon served in Vietnam, flying, I believe they were called A-1 Sky Raiders, and providing close air support to troops on the ground in Vietnam, and then went on to fly Phantom jets. He has over 405 combat missions that he's flown in his career, including 101 carrier landings as an exchange pilot. So we want to welcome General Norwood. Today he's retired. He's been in business and a director and president of his own companies. But his primary activity today is sailing. He loves sailing. He owns Flagship Sailing and teaches sailing and training right here in Little Harbor in Ruskin. So let's welcome General Norwood. Thank you very much.
Well, delighted to be here.
We are going to do one question that we can all talk about. It's in 3 parts, but the specific question is, what does Veterans Day mean to you, and has it changed over the years of and since your service time? So let me start with Charlie. What did it mean to you when you were young?
To be truthful, Veterans Day did not mean a great deal to me when I was young. I grew up in a large blue-collar neighborhood in Detroit. I don't remember any Veterans Day parades in the neighborhood or anything like that. There were a lot of veterans in the neighborhood, and those people were significant to me because I was always interested in who they were. There was a guy down the street that had been a navigator on a bomber. Other people had been Army or whatever, but that was interesting to me. As I gradually became a little bit older, late teens and so forth, it meant something to me, but I never attended a Veterans Day program in the city that I can recall. And it really didn't become significant to me until the time I actually joined the Marine Corps. As I finished my initial enlistment and returned to civilian life in 1969 and to school, Veterans Day did have a meaning for me, and what it really revolved around for me was honor and respect. As I've gotten older, it means much, much more.
That's, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's something that stays with you your entire life.
I agree. You want to jump on that?
Yeah, I'm on the board of directors for My Warriors Place, and on behalf of My Warriors Place and Kelly, I would like to pass my thanks to your affinity group, because you folks have had a continuing and significant and much appreciated support of my Warriors Place. On her behalf and on my behalf as a member of the board of directors, I'd like to say thank you for that support. The key behind my Warriors Place really tees off what you were talking about, this idea of service, that everyone that has served obviously has become part of something bigger than themselves and asking more of themselves. So her working with not only veterans, wounded warriors, but the Gold Star families,
Yes.
and other volunteers. And that's something that I think we have to keep in mind when we're honoring veterans. I joined the Air Force in 1960. It was 60 years ago. And when I joined, statistically, probably less than a quarter of service members, men and women, had families, meaning a family they were responsible for. They were single. It was a military of single people. Today, the numbers have flipped the other way. That 75 to 80% of the families or the military members have got responsibility for a family. That's who they are dragging around all these forts and camps and assignments with, and are taking a brunt of that, and they're sharing that sacrifice and the risk. So sometimes it's not only the veterans, but their family members that we also have to recognize and appreciate. Now, a young guy like Joe may not remember that part of the military, but
I do. But yeah, I remember my wife and I got married. We were 24 years old when we got married, and from the time we got married to the time we retired from the military, we had moved 13 times. But she hung in there with me all the time, and when I celebrated with her.
So when we honor our veterans, we're also tipping the hat to our veterans families, because they know the sacrifice they made.
The thing about Veterans Day and what Veterans Day means to me is that after my service and being back in college and then later in my profession, it was when I came upon a colleague or someone in the field that was a veteran. And we often had something in common. It was a way to make friends and an association, a bond that kind of helped you gel and make a connection. Where that was often absent in dealing with a lot of people that weren't veterans. You felt somewhat different. People say that being in service during Vietnam make you better or worse or whatever. And I've always said it made me different, but not better or worse.
Yeah. No, that's because without saying a word, just the fact that we're veterans, and I think it's worth pointing out that your videographer here today is also a veteran.
Thanks, Ron.
So, thank you, Ron. But there's a shared notion of service. There's a shared concept of having stepped up to a noble cause and shared adversity sometime. I had a friend one time tell me, he said, being in the military was fun. It just wasn't always funny. And that kind of captures what it was. Because when you think back on some of the things that happened during your career, some will make you laugh, but some will make you cry. And there is sacrifice, and those folks in your club, I imagine that you still have some World War II veterans that are in there.
We do. They're getting fewer and far between, but we do have some.
And one of which just got married.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I thought Charlie said if they wanted to have a wife, they would issue.
One just got. Mine's very similar to yours, Charlie. That when I was young, my only affiliation with military and with veterans is when my brother, who was in the Navy, went to the South Pacific. That was my only affiliation with the military, is when he would come home or he would write to me and we'd communicate. And that's when Veterans Day started, when I heard about Veterans Day, and then I heard about, my dad was also in the Army, but I never associated it with Veterans Day until my brother. And so that shaped it to the very beginning, and then once I got into the military, that started shaping it a whole lot different. I understood, or I begin to understand what a veteran really is. It's a brotherhood, right? Brotherhood, sisterhood, of a bond that you can't get anywhere. But collectively, the Department of Defense and the military services have a bond, and I didn't learn that until well into my career.
Right.
As I got further into my career and I started looking at other aspects and started getting involved and do other jobs, started to see, well, yeah, these guys, these A-10s are out supporting everybody on the ground who are not Air Force, supporting Army, they're supporting Marines. As I went through my career, my vision of a veteran completely changed. Veterans Day is just that. It's to show respect and honor to those who served, obviously those who gave all, but all who served.
One thing I wanted to go back to, and I'm thinking about it, and it was true for me, and I think it is for a lot of people, and I think it's still true today. A lot of men and women today join the military, whatever branch they join, because they want to be part of something larger than themselves. But I think that sense of being part of something greater than yourself, the thing I saw that really fostered teamwork is exposure to a common adversity.
That's right.
And it just, you know, like in Marine boot camp, it's you versus the drill instructor or whatever. And but that being part of a greater, something bigger than themselves, and it's very meaningful, and that sticks with you as you go through life. Today, what I get concerned about is with the volunteer service, you have a finite number of people that will become veterans, and a finite number of people are carrying the burden of defense of the nation.
So General, you entered in 60. If I caught you right on one of our calls, you retired in 97?
97.
So I think you've seen a few things change. How has your impression of both veterans and Veterans Day been molded over those 37 years of service?
Yeah. It has, and I was kind of self-listening while Charlie was talking, and that's a really good point. That opportunity to recruit and bring people on board is getting tougher and tougher. And so right now we're at that statistically about 1% of the population serves in the military. And that is just such a small number. That means there's entire families, almost entire communities out there that don't have a direct involvement. And that's why so many of the outreach programs and the education programs are important. And it's important for veterans to help tell that story about service and sacrifice. To your point about the kind of different time frames, my initial experience would probably be a lot like Charlie's, in that I don't remember Veterans Day parades and stuff, but I sure remember a lot of people that served in the military. You know, my dad was in the Coast Guard, my two brothers were in the Navy, my brothers-in-law were in the Marines and Navy, had uncles and cousins that were in the Air Force and Army, and it was just kind of the standard. Now, why was it the standard? One was that we had a draft, and it was the idea that everybody served, and when it's your turn, it's your turn. And I think there's a buy-in when you have that kind of thing. So I'm one of the people that was real cautious about going to an all-volunteer force. You know, that if it's not shared by our entire nation, then it's going to be kind of tough to do. So I remember when I enlisted and took the oath of enlistment, and I would like to make a couple of comments later about this, the evolvement of how that oath has evolved. But when I took that commitment, I had no idea what I was getting into. And then you are one, you know, and you're, like you say, at boot camp or basic training, probably with that question of, wow, what did I get into here? What's going on? Because you have no idea. There's no way at 18 or 19 years of age that you can fast forward and say, I wonder what this is going to look like, you know, 60 years from now when I look back on this. But it is what you've been talking about. It's something that you can be very satisfied about and very proud of. In the service, as you go up in rank, one thing you figure out pretty quickly is you didn't get there by yourself. So the higher rank you go, you realize, you look around and you go, you know, I'm here at this position, at this rank, because a lot of people have worked really, really hard. And so that gives you even more appreciation for those that are doing the day-to-day heavy lifting with you. Now that I'm out of the service and I look back, I'm even more impressed with our younger veterans now, because when you realize, you think back to 2001, 9/11, we've got people that are serving in the military now that have served for 18 and 19 years, and that entire time our country was at war. The entire time. They joined up when we were at war, and that has not stopped. So all volunteer is hard to manage, it's expensive, but in my mind it's working because young people are stepping up to it.
What's the desire to be there?
There is, and it goes back to that number of 1% is just really scary. I mean, one is a small percentage of the country. I'm on another advisory board for an organization called Mission Readiness, and their basic premise is that of all the youth between 18 and 25 years of age, only 25% of them are eligible for military service. So think about being a recruiter. I mean, when you walk in and you see a group of young people, 4 people there, there's only one of them is even qualified. They lose about 25% for involvement with drugs and law, about 25% because of education. They don't have a high school education or even a GED, or they can't pass the physical because of obesity and things like that. So that pool is getting smaller and smaller. Our recruiters are having to work harder and harder to recruit them, and it's a smaller and smaller percentage of our population. So I have nothing but absolute respect for the young men and women that are serving our nation now, and I would not hesitate to recognize them as the true heroes they are for stepping up and taking on the service.
How did you feel about the Air Force and your place in it before you deployed, your first deployment overseas in Southeast Asia, and then after that? Did it change you at all? I mean, because
yeah,
you had reality smack you in the face over there.
Yeah, it did. You know, there was a lot of pop culture with songs with words like "Next Stop Vietnam." So it's quite a change, you know, from peacetime training to all of a sudden being in a combat environment. But I think you made the remark earlier that while you have these different services, they're there to serve the other services too. So when I was my first tour, I was flying A-1 Sky Raiders. Our primary job was search and rescue, and also close air support. And there was nothing that would get a bunch. You mentioned the A-10. Well, we were the propeller-driven version of the A-10, and there was nothing that would fire pilots up more than to receive a signal that they had a TIC, troops in contact. That meant American troops were down there taking fire, and they needed help. And that just, if you ever wondered what your purpose in life was, you get a radio call like that, you know what it is. It's to take care of your fellow service member.
And you say TIC, it didn't say Marines in contact,
That's right.
It didn't say Army in contact, or
Troops in
soldiers,
contact.
it was troops.
Yeah, that's exactly
Didn't
right.
matter who.
But close air support in an A-1 Sky Raider means something entirely different than the usual Air Force close air support.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys used to come in really, I mean, at treetop level.
Yeah, and that's true. And of course, you know, in tipping the hat to the other services, the A-1, or as it was known as the AD Sky Raider before, was a Navy and a Marine aircraft, and so we inherited it from them, and I was proud to have flown it, especially in the roles and missions that we did. About that service, I keep coming back to this thought you mentioned earlier about shared adversity and commitment and honor and things like that. You know, I did a little bit of research just for my own information about Veterans Day, and when I was young, I remember everybody saying, "Well, it used to be Armistice Day." You know, it was the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, and it was just to recognize the war that will end all wars. Well, we found out after they established Armistice Day that there were many more wars to come, and they will continue to be there. And eventually in the 1950s, it became Veterans Day to honor all those who have served. And I'm delighted that we're able to take part in this panel today and talk about that. But the other thing I looked at was, having been an officer, I gave the oath of enlistment and the oath of commissioning to lots of people. certainly hundreds, and it may have been a much number greater than that. And that, again, is something that all of us did. We all took an oath, a commitment, not knowing where we're going to end up, what we were going to end up doing, but we took that oath. And those words will resonate among the four of us here today, to include our videographer, as well as the members of your club. That's when we swore or affirmed, as you might, but swear to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. You look at those words and you realize that every man and woman out there who has served has said those same words, and it wasn't something they took lightly. I mean, that was a contract, a blank check that they signed that was committed to, come hell or high water, whatever was coming, peace or war, they were ready to do it. So I went back to see, when did that actually start? Well, it turned out those words came into play in about 1960. So literally they had just kind of fine-tuned those words when I took my first oath of enlistment as a 17-year-old there in El Cajon, California, just after graduating high school. But I went back to see, well, where did it start? So if you'll permit me to to mention something here. The first oath was in 1775, and it was part of the act creating the Continental Army. And the words were basically this: having voluntarily enlisted myself as a soldier in the American Continental Army for 1 year unless sooner discharged, I do bind myself to conform in all instances to such rules and regulations as are or shall be established for the government of that army. That was in 1775. That was the oath that the soldiers took when they went into that winter encampment in Valley Forge in 1777. You know, we talk about, we took an oath, went to basic training, and we're going, what did we get into? Can you imagine what there in Valley Forge, what they were saying? What have we gotten into? Is this going to be worth it? And it was worth it. It was worth it. We declared our independence, and out of that, our first Constitution was really the Articles of Confederation. And so the oath kind of stayed that way until the Constitution was ratified. Probably because when you say you swear that you'll support and defend the Constitution, has got a better ring to it than I'll support and defend the Articles of Confederation. So it was an experiment. It was our first Constitution, but it became different when we got it. Finally, in 1789, literally 2 weeks after the Constitution was ratified, they modified the quote, or the swearing in, to say, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, and I will bear true allegiance to the United States of America and to serve them honestly and faithfully. Those were the words that they were giving there in the 1780s and the 1790s, 1800s. Not that different from what we said ourselves.
Very close to what we've got.
Because that's what we swear, that we will support and defend the Constitution. So you kind of look back on it and you think about the people that made that kind of a commitment, that brought our nation forth, and yet people are still stepping up and making that same statement. To Charlie's point earlier, why do we have a Veterans Day? Why do we honor it? I would like to share just one more quote with you.
Sure.
It was Winston Churchill that said, "A nation that does not honor its heroes will soon have no heroes to honor." And it's just so. Have I changed over the years? Yeah, I'm even a bigger fan of Veterans Day, and especially of our young soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and service members that are stepping up and making that same commitment to support and defend our Constitution, and they're doing it in literally a time of war, and with no idea where that's going to take them. Our basic training, boot camp, whatever you call it, is honestly transformational. That for whatever reason they sign up for, they're doing it with their eyes at least partially open. They realize there's war going on, there could be risk, and they go into that basic training organization, and when they come out the other end, they have been transformed. They are now part of something so much larger than themselves. They've learned their heritage, they've learned their service history, they realize really why they're there, and they may have not been sure why they signed up when they started, but by the time they come out, they get it. They know where they're headed.
Some of them, maybe for the first time in their lives, turn and look at the person next to them and know that they've got each other's back.
Right, yeah.
One thing that concerns me, though, about today's military is that because it's only a finite, small percentage of the population that actually serves, the battles that we fight, the engagements that we become involved in, are relatively painless for most of the population, other than except through the cost of the defense budget and perhaps taxes. So, you know, this war, the war on terror, the war on Iraq, whatever you want to call it, they've gone on, and yet it has had no effect upon most people in the country.
Right.
Unless they have a family member that has been in the military or a relative or close family member. Because of that, though, the young men and women that are serving today and that have been serving, I think, there is a real feeling of camaraderie amongst them and a bond. That's what, for those that get out, that's what makes the adjustment probably more difficult than it was for many veterans in the past, during the 50s or 60s, even Vietnam, because most people don't understand what they've been doing, or they also are viewed a little bit as an outsider. I'm not talking now about people that are retiring from the military, but the young enlistees that go in for 3-4 years and then get out. And sometimes I think it's a little bit more difficult for them today.
And I hear that often talking to veterans about the challenge of doing business and interacting with people in the civilian world. They lose a bit of trust there because there's a little bit of everybody out for themselves kind of thing. And you know that in the military, when that platoon leader calls for a dust off to get a helicopter in there, he or she can count on there's going to be a helicopter coming in there. When fighter pilot's looking to get refueled and is looking for a tanker to get them, you know it's going to be there, because that's a commitment we make to each other. And sometimes in business, those commitments are less than
Very true.
bulletproof.
I think we should give credit to our videographer, Ron McKenzie, who is a veteran also, and a very esteemed and honorable veteran of the United States Navy. And I just want to honor Ron and his service.
Good. Well, we appreciate your thanks, Ron. If I might, I'd like to mention one other quote. Several years ago, I had the chance to meet Robin Higgins. She is a former Marine Lieutenant Colonel, and she was the former Director of Florida Veterans, probably 12, 15 years ago. Her husband, Rich Higgins, was a Marine Colonel who was murdered by terrorists in Lebanon. So Robin went on to become quite the public speaker, but I've got a quote from her where she talks about military life, and I'd like to share that with you if you don't mind. Robbins wrote, "Consider how very contradictory is a soldier's life. They love their country, but spend years on foreign soil and on seas far from home. They revere freedom, but they gladly give up their own. They boldly defend our right to live as individuals, yet they yield their individuality for a greater cause. They cherish life, yet bravely ready themselves to die in the service of our country." Robin was so right with those remarks and observation, and I think it's very fitting as we honor all of our veterans to realize that that's what people think about their service. It is honorable, and it is much appreciated, and I think we should do all we can to continue honoring our veterans across the board.
Very good.
And again, thank you very much for letting me spend some time with you this afternoon and participate in your panel.
Well, thank you, General. And I don't think there's any better final thoughts, because that sums it up. I want to thank Charlie, you, General, you for supporting this. Wish everybody a happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all for joining us today on the celebration of Veterans Day. This program will be posted on the Valencia Lakes Military Veterans Club webpage at VLMVC.org. And I'll also send a link via Nextdoor for those who want to view it through that medium as well. Please stay safe in the storm and have a wonderful Veterans Day.